Hey everybody, so this week we are going to be diving into the next section of our lecture of the series, and it's going to be over building bridges and adapting to cultures. So, as we do this, we need to first understand what are these words that we're saying. So first, let's define the word community. Okay, so if you look up the definition and try to understand and look around you, community means a group of people that are living in the same area that have the same common goal. So just because you live in a cul-de-sac, that is not your only community. A community could be your classmates. A community could be all the people who are always going to the same place at the exact same time and always just hanging out. A community could be this online class. We all are a community. So it's just a group of people who have the same goal in mind. Does not matter if you live in a neighborhood or you don't. Community is just a group of people with a common goal. For example, Michael Scott talks about Dunder Mifflin. So he says that Toby lives in HR. So technically he works for corporate. So he's really not a part of our family or our community. Also, he's divorced, so he's not really part of anybody's family. But Michael Scott's describing Dunder Mifflin is a community. The people that he works with, that is an example of community. Now next, we want to define the word culture. A lot of people just kind of look and think culture, oh, there's the Asian culture, then there's the England culture, and then there's the South American culture, and the African culture, or the Texan culture, or the whatever culture. But that's actually not correct. Those are types of cultures, but culture is a lot more narrow than that, and a lot more broad in a sense. So let's look at the definition. Culture is a learned systems of knowledge, beliefs, ideas, attitudes that are adapted to these people that share these common norms and that they help shape their generation and other generations around them. So, we have a culture in here. We have certain common norms. We have beliefs. We have ideas. OPSU, they have a culture around there. Certain departments at OPSU even have a culture. So some cultures could be tiny. Your family has certain cultures because it's their ideas, their knowledge, their behavior, their beliefs. But then you might have an extended family. That is an example of culture as well. So culture is just a group of people who are in a community who also share it. And the community then has certain ideas, beliefs that then become a culture. So an example of that would be off of New Girl. If you've ever watched the show New Girl, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you do not know what New Girl is, well then you need to watch it to understand this. You don't have to, but I recommend watching it. It's a great show. So, Jessica Day they play this game called True American. And someone walks into their apartment and everyone in the apartment knows how to play the game, except for this new person who's welcoming to their community and trying to learn about their culture. So how she explains the game is, so it's 50% drinking game, 50% life-size Candyland. Well, more like 75% drinking, 20% Candyland. Oh, by the way, the floor is lava. Oh, these are pawns. They are soldiers for the Secret Order. They're kind of kings for the castle. Okay? When you first get into that community, get into that culture, you're going to have no idea what you're talking about. But once you start playing the game, you understand it completely. Now, it helps that it's 75% a drinking game, but still, you're able to do all of that. And once you get indulged in the culture, you understand it more. When I was in China for 6 weeks over the summer, I learned so much more about the culture of Shanghai. And then when we went to Beijing, the culture was totally different. But I was able to have the luxury of being indulged in another culture, even though me moving off to college and then me getting married, that's always being indulged in another culture. But I go and I went away to a completely different place with a completely different community with a completely different culture. So when someone uses the term culture shock, that's not just saying you're going to a different place. You're just kind of unaware of the knowledge, the behaviors that they have. So you're just overwhelmed with it. You're not being shocked by what's going on. It's just all coming at you at once, so you're just a little overwhelmed. That is what culture shock is. Not that you step into a different world or a different state or a different country and you're like, oh my gosh, they're completely different. It's just overwhelming, like, oh wow, they have this and they have this and oh, that's different, that's different. So it could be all interesting, but it's still a part of culture shock. It's not just you going like,
what is going on?
Okay, next, we want to look at diversity. Now, there are many different forms of diversity, but we're going to cover 5 different forms. So first, sex, and second is gender. Now, let's stop right here for a little bit. Sex and gender are different. Now, when I say that, I don't want people to be like, no, they're the same thing. You can't say all that. Transgender movement, blah, blah, blah. Okay, please don't get into that. The definition of sex and the definition of gender are different. Now, all the different information that is with the LGBTQIA community and all of that stuff and transgenders, that's something different. It is along the lines of this, but realize what we are talking about is not a part of that. Okay, so whether you believe that is right or wrong, we're not talking about that. What we are talking about is the definition of sex and the definition of gender. They are different. So first, the definition of sex, it's biology. When you are born, you either have the sex of a male or the sex of a female. That is what sex is. Now, gender. Gender is more so along within the mind. Now, I'm not saying people believe that they're a male and they should change. What I'm saying is the way our mind works, that's what gender is targeting. So when you look at gender, some people's mind, if you're a person who is able to focus on millions of things at once, then your gender is, that part of it is more like a male or a female side. But if you're very good about being able to narrow down and focus on one topic, then your gender is more along the side of a male. Now, you're going to have a mixture, and everyone has some female and male parts, but sometimes, a lot of times, we are more on one side than we are the other. There are some people who have a lot of both, or have a lot of at least of both. Okay, so realize that those are different. Sex is biological. You were born with your sex parts. Okay, so to have sex, you have to use your parts that you were born with. Gender is what your mind goes along with. Okay, so that's the way you can help remember it. So sex is more biology, gender is more psychology. Different way to remember it. Now moving on, there are other three types. Okay, so we have sexual orientation, and then we also have age and ethnicity. So looking at it, if you're going into a room, and I'm going to be talking about social media because I remember one time I was the social media director for a year up here in Amarillo, and when I was doing that, I stepped in and I was talking to people about social media. Well, with the social media, I went in and it was these people that were a lot older than I was. So I had to really water down what I was trying to tell them to get them to the level that I was hoping for them to get to. But then the next week I talked to people who were around my age, so it was a lot easier. So I was able to analyze my audience, which is what we're going to talk about later. But looking at the diversity of the age, I knew that the group of people, they weren't going to understand as much. Now, some people who are older in age could understand social media, yes. But looking at diversity, that really helps. Now there's one other diversity that I have not explained. So this is a wizard. Okay, I love Harry Potter, but I also love Parks and Rec. So if you know Parks and Rec, this is April. She says she's a wizard. Okay, now moving on. We want to look at different types of things. So ethnocentrism. This is basically saying that what I do, my culture, my community, it's better than what your culture and what your community is. This happens actually a lot, especially in the United States of America. Now, the United States looks at other countries and they say, we're better than you. Okay, now, I'm not saying that they always go in and they're saying, we're better than you, change to our ways. A lot of times the United States says, we have more help than you, let us help you figure out what you want. And the U.S. is pretty good about doing that. But one of the biggest things that happens in the U.S. is our political parties. People who are just Republicans, and then we have people who are just Democrats. They say, I'm better than you. Then they just vote for one or they vote for the other, which is a sign of this. But then you have people who are in the middle who say, oh, I understand your way, and I understand your way. And they're in the middle because they're looking at it and they don't believe one's better than the other. They understand that there are good ideas coming from all sides. And that's what we want to do. We want to make sure we're approaching ideas and thoughts and different things like that. Especially when we're doing a speech, when we're analyzing our audience, when we're looking at it. We want to make sure we're understanding that what we believe we might think is best, but we want to make sure we approach it to try to understand and try to learn from other people. And in the end, we still might believe that what we are believing is best, and that's okay. But we don't want to go in thinking that we're better than them and trying to show them why we are right and try to show them why they're wrong. We want to understand. In the end, you still might believe that you are right, and that's okay. Now, there are two different terms that I want to do right now. First is stereotyping. This is placing someone in an inflexible category, basically putting them in a mold, saying that, oh, you're this, well, you're gonna be this, 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 okay? So at this time, I kinda always do this. So, I'm a man, right? Well, first of all, let's say a man. Let's put that up on the board. So we have a man, and what are some things for men? So most men have deep voices. Most are tall. Most of them have shorter hair. Okay? And most of them are big and strong and muscular. Okay? So just looking at this, now there's a lot of other stereotypes of men, and I'm not saying that all men have to be like that, because we're about to get to that point. And there's a lot more that a lot of times men have to be. So let's look at it. Like I said, I'm a man. Okay? Do I have a deep voice? No. You can all hear how deep my voice is. Okay, I wish I had a deeper voice, but I do not. Okay, am I tall? No, I am 5'7", my wife is 5'11", so I am not tall. Do I have shorter hair? In the grand scheme of things, my hair is pretty short. It's longer than others, but it's not, down to here. So yes, I have shorter hair. Am I big and strong? Well, maybe one day. So looking at the stereotypical man, the mold that it is to become a man, technically, I'm only 1/4 of a man, according to what we just did. But that's not right. I am a man, and these are stereotypes. Now, typically, men do have that, okay? And that's called, when we're looking at it, and we have prejudice against people. It's a judgment based on the assumption that something we already know. Now, you might have grown up with a big, strong father. So when you think of a father, or when you think of a man, you might think of all those things. And that's okay. You'd be like, oh, he's a man. I bet this, this, this. So you're going to think that. You might have met someone who is Chinese before, and you remember that your Chinese person had qualities of A, B, and C. But when you meet this person, you might be like, oh, they don't have the qualities. So yes, you just stereotype them. But what's stereotyping happens to everyone. But where it gets too far is when you say, you don't have this, this, this. But when you look at them, you're like, oh, okay, I stereotype them this way, but they're not that way. And you automatically change your assumption. That's okay, and you change your thoughts about them. Another example would be off of Friends. So if you don't know the show Friends, first of all, shame on you. I love this show. But it would be Ross is a paleontologist off of Friends. Okay, that's his job. So he does dinosaurs, as Shelly says. Now, Rachel comes out, and Rachel and Ross at this time are dating. So she comes out and she says, does this look like something a girlfriend of a paleontologist would wear? And then Phoebe says, I don't know. You might be the first one. So Phoebe just stereotyped all paleontologists to say that they don't have, most of them probably don't have a girlfriend because they're geeks, they're nerds. Now, yes, this is funny and it's great, so it works and it's not harming anybody, but that is a form of stereotyping. But realize, I love humor, I love sitcoms, they're my favorite things, so I'm not saying shame to Phoebe, I'm just using it as an example. Now, moving on to our last thing, this is differences in culture, okay? So with this, there are a lot of differences in with culture, but I want to make sure you're focusing on these. And in your textbook, I want you to read more about these. Your textbook explains these plus a few more. So individualistic versus collectivism is the only one I'm going to explain, and the rest of them you should do in your textbook. So first, individualistic. This is like in the United States versus collectivism, which is China. So individualism in the United States, we're very focused on the individual, whereas in China, they're very focused on the culture and the community and the whole country itself. Okay, which one's right, which one's wrong? We don't have anything to say. We might have a preference, but there's not a right or there's not a wrong. Now looking at it, individualistic, giving you an example of that, would be when we go to the Olympics and Michael Phelps wins gold. What do we say? Michael Phelps won gold. Michael Phelps broke the record. Michael Phelps has a lot of gold medals. Michael Phelps won gold for America. Michael Phelps won. But in China, and I even asked my Chinese students there that what they do, just to clarify, in China what they do is, this person won gold for China. China won another gold for China, won by this person. Yes, they still say that this person won, but they really focus on China won gold. China's going up on the charts. China is going to win all the gold medals. China's going to do this. Whereas in the U.S., we say, this person won, this person won, this person won for the U.S., but this person won. Good job to this person. we really focus on the person themselves instead of the community around and the culture around. Whereas China focuses on the culture and the community and the country. Instead, they don't really focus on individual people. Again, there's not one that's right or wrong. We just have our preferences, and a lot of us might prefer the individualism because we grew up here. But there's not a right or wrong, there's just preferences. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to make sure you're doing your weekly discussion and your weekly participation. So make sure you go out, you do that, and other than that, if you have any questions, feel free to email me, let me know. I am always here to answer questions, and I'm excited that you're hopefully underway with the class and learn a little bit more. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. Other than that, have a great week. Bye, guys.